throw in her hair right now. So one thing you kind of want to do, like I said, is you want to use as few points as possible, and you want to try to keep, make your shapes follow along. So a little hard to explain, but this shape, the one for Finn right here, going from here all the way around and then back down, this is going to be one big long line. So if I know that I'm going to do that, I know that this line here can be hidden inside of that line, so we don't have to go perfect with it. So I can bring in this point here and figure out that I need that point about right there. Bring this in. And then that line, we don't have to bring it exactly to here because we know it's going to be hidden back behind this. And I tend to, click, hold, drag, and hold down Alt and drag in my adjustment bars a lot, like this, because I can generally guess pretty close what the curve of the line should be. If I've got 20 years experience doing that, so the simpler way for somebody who's just starting is to just put in a point, determine, are we going to do a line from, are we going to do all of this whole thing as, one long stroke? We probably are going to do this whole part up to here as one piece, so we'll put in a point here, put in a point here, put in a point here. Then we're going to swap it over. And do all of that. So, we've got this line following basically how we want it here. We can grab our direct selection tool, select just a single point on this, convert it to smooth, pull the line to where you want it, hold down Alt, and click on the other adjustment bar and pull that to where you want it. So, we basically got the whole outline here, pretty good. And we can click here and do the same thing. And hold down Alt, and so basically, your mouse pointer turns to this plus. What that basically means is that you're just adjusting the one adjustment bar. You're not adjusting both of them. So if you look at this, you can see that it's a curve in and then a curve out. We can do this curve here, but we can't do the curve like this on this side until we click on this one and then adjust this side to where we want it. We can do the same thing over here. And again, you can see that the curve is kind of an S curve. If we exaggerate it, it's like this. So in order to get a curve like that properly, we need an adjustment bar on both sides so it can curve down and then curve out. We have the same thing happening here. So it's an S curve again, so we have to adjust this properly here. And then for here, we're doing this line across down like this. So what we can actually do is pull in this line, click here, adjust it to smooth. We'll do the same thing on the other side. You'll see that this is kind of an S curve as well. Well, we'll do the exact same thing on this side. We have kind of the same thing going on here. And we don't have to get these lines perfect. We just want them to be pretty close. So I'm just trying to make them follow the line pretty closely. If we zoom in a little bit, you'll see that this tip here is probably a little thin, so we can bring this up a little bit right there. And it still follows relatively closely. And you'll see that, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 10 points total for this whole thing. We don't have to put points in the middle at all to do all of this. We only have to do those. And the reason that I stopped it here is because if we look here, we've got, this just continues on here and here. I'm going to actually adjust that a little bit. But this point here, it kind of stops, it chunks out here. So this is a good starting point, and so is this. It's a good ending point as well. So it's a good start to end point. Then we have, kind of her eyebrow right here. So we can draw that in as just one shape. You'll see that, I'm basically guessing on where I think it should go. So I'll draw it in. I'll hit the A key to go to the direct selection tool and just do a little fine tuning. And again, you'll see that, this is just going on top of everything here. If we wanted to, we could fatten it up this part here a little bit by adjusting this over here. One thing you don't want to do here is when you're adjusting this, cross this bar over. The reason for that is if we zoom in, you see how we get this little chunk here that looks bad? And if I Control Z to go back a step, you don't have that the other way if they're not crossing. So always keep in mind you never want to cross these bars over like that, because otherwise you run into that exact issue right there. So we're just going to leave it basically like this. And then this chunk, we have a good starting point here and ending point up here. We could add this little line here, but I don't think that actually adds anything to the image, so we're going to cut that out. That's one thing you can always do as the vector artist, is you can add or remove stuff as you think it's needed. So, and you'll see that I'm going to go ahead and shift exit so you can see the line. I'm not trying to follow this line perfectly, I'm trying to follow the idea of where it should be. So I'll pull in this line, I'll click here to remove that, hold down. And then I can hold down Alt and drag the other bar over here. And again, I'm trying to keep the adjustment bars on the same side. So both of these adjustment bars are here. So when I do the internal point from here, I'm going to try to do the adjustment bars here rather than here. The reason for that is, again, it makes it simpler to get an idea where the line should follow if the adjustment bars are on the same side on each side. If we highlight over the top of them, you can see they follow kind of the same angle here. You could also bring it back here like that and do that. And this one, we can do the same thing, so it's following the same angle, and that gives both sides a nice the same angle, which will make everything look better at the end, because it looks like it fits better. Zoom out a little bit, hide that, and just show you what we've done so far. And don't worry if you can't keep up with what I'm doing. I am going a little fast. I'm trying to slow myself down a little bit here, but it can be kind of a pain for me to do. Let's delete this one, actually. Zoom out a tad. Alright, so we've got this line in. We want to pick another line that's simple to do. And we've got this line that's going all the way across, and we can hide it in here, and we can hide it in here. So let's do the bottom of her mouth. So again, with this one, we can probably put in a point. We're going to try to do this with just 4 points, rather than, a point at the bottom, a point at the top. So we'll put that in. We'll swap that, just so. we'll click here so we remove the other side of the adjustment bar. Go up here. We're going to pull in this adjustment bar here since we want both bars on the same side. I'm not trying to get this perfect right now. You'll see that one thing that's happening when we do it like this is that we are crossing it, and that's because this angle is a little awkward. It's because, you know, we're not going to keep things completely parallel here. With this one, we're actually going to cross it, and you can do that. You don't always have to keep it parallel, but you know, with this line here, since it's about the same size here and here, and we'll probably try to keep it the same size here, we'll want to keep the bars parallel. So, I mean, if we kept this thing parallel here, you know, we're keeping kind of the same angle throughout the whole thing. But since we're not trying to do that, we can cross it. So we've got that in. Alright. And we've got a nice line here. So we can do this down, up, down, up, down, up, and hide it in here. So here's a really long one. Now, we're going to go ahead and do this by just putting in a bunch of points. So we're just putting in all the points where we think we'll need points. And we're keeping it to as few points as possible at this point. Excuse me. We'll put it back over to our stroke layer so we can see underneath of it. You'll see that I'm just hiding that here. I'm not going to try to add in this little kink here. I'm going to probably smooth that out a little bit. And then I can... one thing you can always do with this is you can click in, select 2 points, and convert them to smooth. And it'll convert both of them with the same basic angle. So we're going to go ahead and click on this one, hold down Alt, grab the adjustment bar, and drag it to about where we think it should be. Just about right there. Then we can do pretty much the same thing on the other side here. And if we drag over the top of these, you will see that the adjustment bars are in kind of the same spot. We can drag this over and kind of try to make the angle about the same, and you'll see that it's nice and smooth there now. We'll select this one and get this adjustment bar where we want it. If we pull this down and out of the way, you'll see that this is kind of an S shape because it bends up here and it bends down here. So in order to get this angle right, we're actually going to need an adjustment bar on both sides. So to show you what I mean is this side of it needs to bend down, so we're going to have it down here. This side needs to be bent up, so it's going to have to bend up here. So we'll click on that point, convert it to smooth, and then drag this point up. And you'll see that we get that kind of S shape going in there now. It's a little extreme here. We can actually probably pull that down a little. And we'll adjust this one to where we think it needs to be. And we haven't really adjusted this side yet, though, so we'll do that. This again is kind of that, we can adjust this just to where we think it needs to be because we're hiding it in this under this chunk here. And again, you can click on this to do this, or like I showed you before, you can grab your Convert Anchor Point tool and do it as well to add in that. I'm going to actually do it on this side so that we're keeping the adjustment bars on the same spot on the same side here. I'm clicking A to go to my direct selection tool, and we can adjust this in. And after you select this, you can hit Shift X to drop it across and see what it looks like. Or you can hit Shift C to go to your direct selection tool. Bring it in, hit A, hold down Alt, drag that to where you think it needs to go. I'm going to follow this curve a little bit in. We'll do the same thing here. This one's already, already had something added to it. If we select both of these, you'll see that if we bring this curve over to this, it follows the line nicely. If we keep it pretty much parallel here, and at about the same distance, you'll see how this curve is nice and smooth throughout the whole thing. And we kind of want this to be parallel here, so this is nice and smooth. These ones don't have any points on it. Select these two. This one is a little harder because, we can't really keep it parallel and make it work right. We can make it a little bit more parallel though by adjusting this one down a tad so we get less of the distance here. This one right here, it's basically going to be you guessing a little bit. And we can probably actually pull some. If you, underneath this handle thing up on the top, you almost always want to have this on show handles for multiple selected anchor points so that you can click with your direct selection tool and drag over 2 points and see where the angles are. So we can, do this, and now this angle is pretty close. And if we bring this up a little bit, you'll see that the angle, if we keep it, pretty much parallel and to the same spot, you're keeping the same curve throughout the whole thing, but we don't really want that in here. We're actually going to need to adjust this. So we need a curve on this side, but we don't need this really. Shift X to bring that out and adjust this a hair. Zoom out a little, hide the background layer, and you can see this is looking relatively good. One thing you can always do is if you look at something and you don't like how it looks, you can always come in and manually adjust it. So I think this angle is a little bit too much. So we can adjust it out a little bit so it looks closer to where I think it should be rather than what it actually looks like on the image. Another thing that you kind of want to try to keep doing when you're doing something like this is try to draw the thing that's going to be on top of it first, and then draw the thing underneath of it second, or vice versa. But you generally want to draw the thing on top first and the thing underneath second, because it can make it easier to tell where you need to drop the line in. So the next one we're going to do is this line here for kind of our fin. We'll zoom in a little bit. We're going to do this with that same way we were doing. We're going to just click on a point, determine where we think the next curve is going to be, which I think is about right here. The next one, which is right here. And then the last one, which is going to be here for that side. We'll swap the colors back and forth. Put in our other points. We're going to try to keep things parallel. So we're going to try to keep the points at the same spot on both sides and the same amount of points. Then we'll select this, both of these with our direct selection tool, convert them to smooth, and then pull in our adjustment bars to where we think they need to be. And then we're going to try to keep these parallel, basically, on both sides like that. And you'll see that that follows that curve nicely. We're going to do the same thing over on this one now. The reason we're going to do this one over on this side is because since we're going to have adjustment bars on here and this side, we want both adjustment bars in there before we start playing with it. And then we want to get one side proper first. So we're going to get that there, and you can see that we can actually just adjust this one and it's almost right. So then we know we don't have to play with these since they're already nice already. We can then click and drag this one in, and you'll see that it's pretty much parallel and it looks good. Now we know that we can probably adjust these ones here and make them look good, but we can't. You'll see that the angle is too extreme. So we'll need to add some adjustment bars on the opposite side. Now since we'll have this angle here and we like it, we're going to try first off just adjusting the opposite side. You see that we have this little white line here, but it's not really that bad. So I'm going to select that, and we're actually going to see what it looks like if we select these two and make the lines pretty much parallel. See what that looks like. And that looks pretty good, actually. We don't have to follow this line exactly, we just want it to look good. We can zoom out a little bit. We'll hide that. And you'll see that you have a nice smooth line that everything is following nicely. We can pull this one out just a little bit because we kind of want to thicken it up in here so that the thickness is about the same. But other than that, it looks great. We'll go ahead and turn that layer back on, and we can probably do the eyes next. Now, I'm going to actually be using the Pathfinder tool as part of this. The reason for this being, I want to draw this whole line here as one chunk, even though it kind of cuts in here. I think it shouldn't, honestly. So we're going to click there, click there, click there, and then click here, bring that out. We're going to adjust this line first, since this is probably the most important one. Pull this out like that. Pull this out like that. And you'll see that follows the basic setup there. I'm going to actually grab this option here, convert anchor point tool, and we're going to throw an adjustment bar on this side. Then we can get kind of that bulge there. And then we also wanted it just on here because then we can grab this and hide the rest of this back behind here. So we did the whole outline of the eye. Now we need to cut out a part of it. So to do that, we can do this a couple of different ways. I'm going to go over all multiple ways of doing this, but we can do it this way, where we click here, here, and then here, and do kind of the same thing. Convert this to smooth. We're basically trying to trace the inside. And then after you do that, you grab your direct selection tool, select both of the shapes, come over to the Pathfinder and do minus front. For this to work, this shape, which we want removed, needs to be in front of the other one, and it'll cut that piece out. The other way that we can do this is we're going to go ahead and delete that. We're going to select this, we're going to edit, and then copy, then edit, paste in front, or Control F. Then we're going to grab our direct selection tool, or V, hold down Alt and Shift and grab a corner, and click and drag it down. And you'll see that we basically made a copy of that same shape, made it a smaller size, and then we're going to basically adjust it so it's covering up basically the same thing. The reason we're doing it this way is because now these angles are following basically the same path, and you can just play with this a little bit. And select them both again, and then minus the front, and then we get basically the same idea. I'm going to pull this in a little bit. So, and then these angles are then following basically the same idea, which looks pretty good. Like that, like that. This same concept works for the inside on the other eye. So we're going to kind of do that the same way. So we're going to do this in 3 points. I'm just going to select all of them, honestly. I'm going to shift C to go to the Convert Anchor Point tool, and I'm just going to throw a curve on all of these right off the bat. Grab my arrow tool with A, and then we're going to pull in some lines. While I'm doing this, I'm going to show you something that you don't want to do very often on here. If we click on this and pull this into about where we want it, you'll see that this is kind of clipping up a little bit. If we zoom in, you can grab your hold down Alt and click and drag this down like this. You don't want to do this very often, because if you come in here, you can see that we've got a little sharp tip here. It'll probably be a little bit more prominent if I do it a little bit more extreme like this. But you see how you get this sharp kink here if you do something like that? That's because these adjustment bars are not parallel with each other. That's actually what this Convert Anchor Points to Smooth does, is it makes those anchor points smooth with each other. And you want that because otherwise you get that little weird kink that we were getting. So when you're doing something like this, you kind of want to keep all the bars parallel with each other. And I'm just trying to do this with, we're not trying to follow the eye exactly, we're just trying to make it look nice. And we're trying to do it with as few points as possible. So we're doing it with 3 right now. You could throw in a 4th one here, it's not going to hurt anything. You could even try to do it without this point. I find it a little easier to throw in that extra point, but we could have probably done this with just 2 points. So now what we're going to do in order to cut out the internal part of this is we're going to do what we just did before and grab our direct selection tool and select the object. Edit and copy. Edit, paste in front, hold down Control or Shift and Alt, and grab a corner and click and drag it inside, and you'll see that we're getting the basic shape internally. And you'll see that it's following the same curves, and it doesn't look too bad like this. Then you can just adjust it back and forth a little bit. Then you can select both of them, go to the minus front, swap it back, and you'll see that we have this whole piece in there. And then we can do this piece right here. I'm just guessing at it. And I did something kind of dumb there. I put the adjustment bar on the wrong side. So we drag over the top of these two, you'll see that the adjustment bar is parallel. Pull this one up a little bit, and it's pretty close to where it should be. And we're getting close to having the top of her head done. Okay, we can draw this line in here. Again, I'm holding down space bar in order to convert this to hand so I can drag around the image. Probably should mention that more often, but that is very handy. Pull that bar in about where we need it. Then, yep, we got basically that line. One thing nice about this is we can be kind of lazy when doing this and just do it with the ellipse tool. Grab kind of the middle, click, hold down Alt, drag it to about the right size. Shift X to swap the sizes. Drag this to the middle. Hold down Control or Shift and Alt. Drag it down a little bit so it's the right size. You can use the arrow keys to bump it over a little bit so it lines up a little better, which is what I'm doing there. Get it to where we want. Control C to copy. Control S to F to paste in front. Hold down Control or Alt